doesn't feel like they're having sleep, then you have to let me know, because if your 8 hours plus your 2 hours isn't doing justice, then there's something wrong, more likely with you than with us. Yes? But you can only take advantage of that if you're actually sleeping when you're supposed to sleep. Because if you think about this, it's a tragedy, and I say this again, it's a tragedy if you sleep while the lessons are going on. Because each and every single one of you has left your home to come and spend some time in the house of Allah. Yes or no? So that's the first thing. So that's the commitment you've made. So what's the commitment that everyone else has made? Here, they've made a schedule to help your day go very smoothly. You don't have to think about all night spending praying nawafil or reading Quran or so forth. This itikaaf is extremely different to any other itikaaf you would have sat. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. Now, and what you learn in this itikaaf, just to get your mindset right, it's the tools to go and take, when you leave itikaaf, it's the tools that you have to challenge or, not so much challenge, but go into the dunya to cater or against the tricks of shaitan or whatever there might be. I disagree with Brother Zafar when he says this is like Butlins. I still think it's a spiritual ninja camp. Yes? You're 10 days here, you're being trained, you're being given the tools to go out into that world fully equipped to take on shaitan, take on your nafs or whatever it might be. That's the mindset you should have. So we will do everything in our abilities to make this process as easy as possible for you, to facilitate. So everything that we do, remember, whether it's the masnoon adhkars from Fajr and Maghrib, whether it's these majlises, it's all with one key objective in mind, is to get you fully trained and inshallah to achieve the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So have that mindset in place, but you need to make sure you come to these lessons, not become lazy, because we're in day 2. Now I'm going to ask a question which I know every Ustaad asks when they come here, but that's because for us, each person that comes, they want to understand. Can you just raise your hand if you're new to this Itikaaf program? Okay, mashallah. So we have almost like a 60-40 split in favor of the new people. Okay, so everything that we go through, and even the ones that have been here before, there's always benefit in what you're learning, i.e. to enhance yourself and so forth. Okay, so I've given you the overview. I just mentioned that you've been given an overview by Ustad Sajid. So that's one thing that's been taught to you. Then we've had the workshops happening somewhere else, and we've had the Journey of Man, and we've had the 5 Amals. Now, all of this is going to begin to come together. What is going to happen? It's going to come together. So if you are feeling a bit disjointed at the moment, it's like one of the teachers mentioning about a puzzle. They go that when you know what the bigger picture is, everything else will start to fit together. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Each discourse that you've attended will feed into another discourse. So I know, Bazaf, you did a recap as well, didn't you? Okay, good. So I'm not going to push that too much. The other thing just to touch on is the Quran workshop, because it was something very interesting that Dr. Musharraf mentioned. And inshallah, if he's here, he'll be able to correct me. He goes, the Quran is a tool. So in the Quran workshop, now just even on that Quran workshop for the 2 hours that you sat through, you could have just sat for 2 hours and he could have just done recitation and you could have listened. There would have been benefit in that. But instead, the Quran workshop that he's doing is actually teaching you how to access the Quran. That's timeless. That allows you to leave this itikaaf, and then next time when you recite the Quran, you can recite it with a different, or come and approach it with a different understanding. That's going to benefit you more. Now, he said that the Quran has or engages your faculties. It's something that's reflective. Do you remember him saying that? If you don't, you know now, don't you? So that's what Dr. Musharraf said. He goes, it engages your faculties. But he went on to say, so what do we mean by faculties? What do we mean by that? Someone raise your hand. That brother at the... Your 5 senses, that was one of it. So 5 senses being your eyes, your ears, your tongue. Yeah? Such as that. What else did he mention? He also mentioned another element of what to engage. intellect, mind, didn't he? So he mentioned engaging your body and engaging your mind and engaging your heart when you engage with the Quran. But then he made a really interesting observation. He goes, so that's what the Quran does. It engages your faculties. It makes you think. It's reflective. But he goes, to be able to get to that position, he goes, the issue that we have in our day and age is that our minds are absorbed with filth. Yes? They're distracted. They're heedless. Our hearts are full of jealousy or rancor. So if our senses or if our faculties are not purified, we are going to have an issue accessing what? The Quran. Correct? So it's interesting because by the grace of Allah, we are being blessed to be given a workshop which is about, in the context of the Quran that he has translated, about accessing that. But a prerequisite, i.e. a precondition to access that Quran, based on what Dr. Musharraf said, is the engagement or the purification of your faculties. So what Professor Ashfaq, I beg your pardon, Brother Ashfaq was mentioning, and i.e. the preconditions. What were the preconditions to accessing the spiritual world? Raise your hands, please. That brother in the red. MashaAllah. You can look behind, but it's the brother look behind that, inshallah.
Okay. First one is Tawbah.
Yes.
Then you need to have faith, Aqidah, and you have to strive.
So that was the 4 preconditions of the preconditions.
Yeah. Okay.
But what were the preconditions to accessing the spiritual path?
Giving preference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His command.
That's one of the objectives. Can someone help him? MashaAllah, we're supposed to be brothers helping one another.
Okay. Yeah, okay, let me just tell you. The first stage.
Yes, first stage, what do we mean by that?
First stage, the purification of the body.
Yes.
Second stage, the purification of the mind.
Yes.
And third is the heart.
Yes.
And fourth is the enlightenment.
Yes, purification of your soul as well. But let's just focus on the first 2. I don't want to get into my recap what someone else has done. The brother, who agrees with what the brother said? So if your hand isn't raised, that you mean you disagree, yes? Okay, mashallah. So you agree. So he is saying to you that to access the spiritual world, you have to have, or you have to fulfill or seek to fulfill, i.e. make the intention to fulfill these preconditions, i.e. you have to have an element of purification of your faculties, such as your eyes, your ears, and so forth, and your mind as well. That theme will keep coming across again and again because it is a precondition to accessing the spiritual world. It is a precondition to accessing the Quran. So see how the workshop, the Quran workshop, everything will feed in together to help you throughout this journey in Itikaaf. Any questions? Well, sorry, not so much questions, but anything that I've said you don't understand. Now, one thing I would also mention to you that this workshop that you're doing with Dr. Musharraf, there's also a high-level workshop that we do in terms of engaging the Quran spiritually. But we will talk about that at a subsequent time, inshallah. So now what I'm going to talk you through is, one other thing I would make, that whoever has come here to Itikaaf, Dr. Musharraf made a point, he goes, those days are gone, you've come here because your dad or your father has made you come here. But let's just clear that up first. Are any of you here because you've been forced to be here? Whether it's by your parents or whether it's by Uncle Ramzan? Okay, mashallah. I see a few smiles, but no hands have gone up. So alhamdulillah, he encouraged you nicely, yes? If you're from Birmingham, that is. So you've all come here for a reason. Now, in your mind, you should be forming an objective as to why you're here. Don't let Haz always give you the objective. You have to think as well. So Brother Qamar, for example, is here. He sat Itikaaf before. Uncle Iqbal, mashallah, is a regular. Brother Tanim has sat Itikaaf before, yes? And then there's all you new people. Whether you're coming for the first time, like Brother Ittisham, or you're coming for a second time, or third, or so much. So whether you're a newbie or a regular, you should all have what in your mind? An objective. Now that objective can be quite simple. It's to become more steadfast on your salah. That objective might be that someone has an issue with pornography and they want to be able to cut that tie with that particular sin. Others may have an issue with the type of company that they keep and they want to get into a better company. Others might want to connect with Allah because they've never been in having that intimate engagement with Allah. Each of you will have your own objective. So it's important also to keep that objective in mind, because as we go through this process, and I think today Brother Zafar will start taking names for also one-to-ones with the Ustads, i.e. to discuss any concerns that you have, but also to ensure that objective is being achieved. Now, Brother Zafar made a point, and jokes aside, when I used to come to Itikaaf, and I've been coming for a number of years, for me, I was coming from Woking, I was sacrificing 10 days from my life. It's not a small thing that you're doing here. I wasn't here to pass time. I came with an objective, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to achieve something before I went back, period. There was no ifs, no buts about that, because for me, it doesn't make sense why I will travel over, I think it's, how many miles is it, Brother Tabriz, from Woking to here? 200 miles or so. Obviously, Professor's coming in longer. I feel a bit ashamed now making that point. But for 200 miles to come here, to sit at the feet of someone, to learn something. So for me, being here on time, sitting towards the front, why? Because you don't fall asleep if you sit at the front. You're petrified that if you fall asleep, you might get told off. All of these things we did so that we could achieve our objective, and you should be no less selfish about that. You know, you are here for your own objective, and you should be looking to understand what that is and then looking to achieve that, inshallah. So everything that I've mentioned, now let's bring it together and let's have some focus now. So the objective of seeing and tasting, and just as I just said, about accessing the spiritual world, i.e. the ilm al-ghaib, seeing that spiritual world, tasting that spiritual world, to increase your iman. As you know, the best story for us is of Ibrahim alayhi salam, which is narrated in the Quran, when he asked to have an experience, an ilm al-yaqeen, an experience, and he's a prophet. Their iman is pure, and even he is seeking to increase that. And that's what we're looking to do here, each and every single one of you. So, now listen how this makes sense. So whatever other objective that you might have, so if your objective is to stop a sin, if your objective is to be more steadfast on your prayers, more steadfast in speaking to your wife politely, in not disrespecting your mother, whatever it might be, whatever your objective might be, the spiritual unveilings, everything is to support that objective. What is it there to do? To motivate you, to let you have a moment when your anxiety is overtaking, you feel that you're being overtaken by sin, to have this ability to disengage and access that ilm al-ghaib at your leisure so that it can re-motivate you. You know, it can remove that angst that you have in your heart. So that's what these are tools that are being given to help you. So now, one of the things to access the spiritual world, there are sometimes common obstacles that come in the way. Common obstacles. Now, what's an obstacle? Can someone tell me, please? Absolutely, very well put, mashallah. Can you repeat it again? Something that prevents or blocks you from achieving your target, your objective, your goal, your destination. Now again, look how this is being presented. Rather than just teach you how to do the spiritual thing, and some of you will have blockages and then go back and say, oh, this is what's stopping you. We're telling you now. It's like when you're going from here to London. If I told you on which roads or what will cause a blockage or your car to break down, those of you who are sensible will make sure that you've removed that issue from your car, or you made sure you filled up the coolant, you've made sure you've got enough engine oil, and you make sure you don't go on the M6 because you never get to your destination, but it's always got roadworks. Yes? That's what a sensible person will do. If you've already been told what your obstacles are, what the issues are going to be, you will look to manage them before you embark on your journey. There's nothing or no difference here. You are looking, or I'm going to go through common obstacles that you come across that will stop you or hinder you from going on to your journey. So that's the focus. So now you know what the objective of this session is. Yes? In your mind. Because everything has an objective. So the objective of this session will be that when the session completes, before Dhuhr Salah, that you will have in your mind crystal clear as the Mashaykh say, crystal clear what these obstacles are and a solution to those obstacles. And what? Yes, because there's no point in me talking about the obstacles academically and then not giving you a solution. Is there any benefit in that? No, it'd be a nice talk. No one will disagree. Well, some of you might disagree, having to see me for the next hour, but the talk will be there. I can speak about that, but there has to be a solution. And that's the other thing. So every time you come to a session, and throughout this Itikaaf, I want you to remember two things, if nothing else. One is that you're seeking to attain an objective, and B, you should always be given a solution. If those two things, if you feel they're not being achieved or they're not being given to you, you have a right to ask one of the Ustads and say, I don't feel I've been given a solution. I don't feel you're giving. And I'm telling you that's something that you have upon each and every single Ustad that is here. Yes? Is that agreed? That's a pact between, I'm committing all the Ustads to this, between them and yourselves as participants. That you should be giving, you should have the objective and we will give you the solution. Yes. Okay, so so these are 7 major obstacles that I'm going to go through that in achieving the spiritual openings. So I'm going to just, these are the 7, so there's 6 on this slide and 1 on this slide. And let me just go through what they are. The first, and we're going to go into all of these in detail. So you have the first one that's about the body, mind, and heart. You have what that relationship with Allah is like, your spiritual relationship with Allah, major life problems that might be distracting you from Allah, unlawful wealth that is causing an issue in your relationship, marital problems that are causing an issue in your relationship with Allah, how your relationship is with your parents, siblings, which might be causing an issue with your relationship with Allah. Like I said, I'll go through each of these in more detail. And finally, an obstacle that comes across often is the inability or the lack of submitting to the teacher or submitting to the lecturer, the teacher who is teaching you this course. And again, I'll spend some time on each and every single one of these. So the question to ask yourself is, how is your body's relationship with Allah? Are you disobeying Allah? Now, I'm trying to recall who mentioned, one of the Ustads mentioned it yesterday. It might even have been Dr. Musharraf or Ustad Sajid. They said that when you are, if I was to ask you, are all of you believers? Your answer would be yes. Yeah? And then, now, there are levels of belief, aren't there? Just like, if you say to your parents that you love your parents, there's a level to that. So most of you will say that you love your parents, yes? If you don't, let me know, and there might be a solution to that. But the degree or to the level that you love your parents gets tested. When does it get tested? Raise your hands. I want to hear, when does it get tested? In the meantime, can I borrow you for a second? So raise your hands, Brother Muzaffar will come with the microphone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
When your parents are old.
When
they're old.
Okay, so how is it tested then?
With the patience you have with them.
Okay, that's good. I like that. Yeah. When your parents are old, he goes that your love will be tested. When else? Something more obvious. You don't have to wait for them to get old. The love gets tested a lot sooner than that as well. When they're ill.
When they're ill.
Yes, in age, in ailments. What else? Why is everyone making their parents old and ill?
When they ask you to do something that you don't like.
Absolutely. What's your name, brother? Amjad. Brother Amjad, absolutely. He hit the nail on the head. Yes? Each answer was right, but that's a core, because that still happens now, that when your parents ask you to do something, they ask you to do something which you don't like, or goes against something in here, your nafs, or whatever you might want to call it, or your friends, or whatever it is, when they ask you to do something, that's a test of your love for them. Yes or no? Yes. How obedient are you? Are you going to put their order, what they've asked you to do, over what you prefer to do? Yes? That is the relationship, and that's when your tests come. Because equally, your parents, you know how much they loved you because all the sacrifices they made Because each and every single one of us wouldn't be here if our parents didn't sacrifice for us. So your love is tested when your mum says to you, can you go to Asda and get me a bottle of milk? And you either say yes, and you run to do it straight away. You either say, oh, really? Or you give a bit of attitude, such that your parents will never ask you again. Yeah? Or they'll be afraid to ask you, or you point blank just don't do it. That's all a test, and that's all shows the degree of love that you have for your parents. Now, the relationship with Allah is similar. We make a similitude, because obviously we generally can't with Allah. But the love that we ask or you have with Allah is that we say that we love Allah. We say that we prefer Allah. Each of us will say if we didn't say anything else, then all of us will be saying, La hawla wa la quwwata astaghfirullah. How can you not put Allah at the center of your life? How can Allah not be the thing that you love most? Yeah. But then that love is tested when Allah has asked us to do something. He's given us commands to do, and He's given us prohibitions to avoid. So an example is, and you can break this down, you can break down your love for Allah or your relationship with Allah based on a number of things. First, as the brothers were saying, your bodily organs. How much is your tongue in love with Allah? How obedient is your tongue to Allah? So Allah says to you, don't backbite. But sometimes backbiting is tasty. It's a way to make conversation. When you're in a group and you want to bond with someone, or you're a bit bored, it's got a taste to it. But it's prohibitive. So how much do you prefer the command of Allah? Someone walks past and your eyes look up on a non-mahram. How obedient or how strong is your relationship with Allah that you put the preference of Allah, i.e. the fact that He says, don't look at that before looking at it, yes? I.e. your desire, your want is to look, but your want is to look, but the command of Allah is not to. And there's a saying, so I'm just going to run through these now. So how is your body's relationship with Allah? That's what we're speaking about. I.e. how obedient or how strong is the tongue's relationship with Allah? It's fine. That's fine. Yeah. You think this in day and age we will be able to use laptops and PowerPoints and slides? Okay, so how is your tongue's relationship with Allah? How is your eyes? What is the relationship with Allah? Your hands, your feet, your stomach. I'm not going to go through each and every single one of these, but are you understanding the purpose of what I'm saying? Yes? The theme behind that. Now, that's your body's relationship with Allah. Now, there's a saying of Sayyidina Abdul Aziz Dabar rahimullah, that if you want to open your spiritual eye, i.e. if you want to gaze up on ilm al-ghaib, you need to close your physical eye. So let me give you an example. If I want my eyes to fall upon angels, to fall upon the mashaykhs like the likes of Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, to fall upon the prophets, and to fall upon the best of the best, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to have that ziyarah. Now, I don't want to use an example of the Prophet. Let's say the mashaykhs or so forth, or Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, all the pious that have gone before. If I want to see them with my spiritual eye, how does it equate if during the day, by day, I'm watching pornography, but by night I want to have ziyarah of the Anbiya? Does something not fit in your mind? Is that possible? It seems illogical, doesn't it? I'm saying that I have this want that I'm saying I want to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to see the Anbiya in spiritually. It's definitely a want there. But by day, looking at non-mahrams or looking at pornography and so forth, I don't have an issue with that. You're beginning to see your relationship with Allah, how one issue causes an issue for something else. And that's the saying of Sayyidina Abdul Aziz Dabar rahimullah. So we've just gone through this. And everything that I've said about the eyes, tongue, it applies for all the organs. Then we come into how is your mind's relationship with Allah? Now, these questions that we're posing to you, and we're going to give a solution to each of these, is do you entertain thoughts against Allah's command? Do you think bad of other Muslims? What do I mean by that? Do you have a good opinion, or are you one of those, they were talking about, so this is how it's so important. One of the things that Dr. Musharraf was saying, that to engage the Quran, you have to be thinking positively, he said. See how this all will tie back. Look, even though he's giving us a workshop on how to engage the Quran, a prerequisite, i.e. a precondition for him is still that your mind has to be to a certain level. So how positive do you think? Do you have a bad opinion of people? Are you one of those people that if someone didn't give you Islam, you're like, what's his problem? If someone doesn't invite you to a wedding or so forth, all those, does your mind make excuses? They might have overlooked me, there might be a reason, whatever it might be, or does it straight go to, that's it, in your mind you've condemned them, they're going to hell, I'm never ever going to invite them to a dawat, a mawlid, or a wedding ever again in my life? Are you heedless of Allah's remembrance, and how often? So in your day, in your 24 hours that you spend when you're at work, when you're engaging with friends and so forth, how often does Allah come to your mind? Does it come, or does it only come to your mind when you're in a gathering like this, or even when you're doing salah? Sometimes even in salah, how much do you actually think of Allah? Or are you still thinking, we have to ask ourselves, if we're engaged in the dunya, i.e. in distraction, and then when we come to our salah, how often do we disconnect? How easy is it? From the moment I say Allahu Akbar, I close, or am I still thinking about the issues of the dunya? Or in fact, is the time of salah the moment that I reflect about all my dunya activities? Or are you actually thinking about Allah? Those are questions to ask and ponder. What we were speaking, do you practice more negative thinking or positive thinking? This has an impact on you as an individual as well. And then out of 100%, how much is each one? This is, can I just check, has everyone got their packs? Because shortly I'm going to be asking you to start writing things. Yeah? And in your packs, there's a pen. Okay, so can I just ask the brothers that, not the ones that don't have the packs, the brothers that are doing khidmat, can you raise your hands if you were not given a pack, not if you've not picked up your pack? So there's just two people that don't have a pack. And in your packs, please raise your hands if you don't have a pen. If you don't have a pen.
You'll be given a book to write on anyway.
If you don't have a pen? Okay, so most of you have a pen. Sorry? Okay, let me ask the question again. Okay, let me ask the question. And I appreciate you have a pen, but I need to check that everyone else has a pen. Let me just, if I could finish, please. Raise your hands if you do not have a pen. Okay, there's only a couple of people. Okay, so everyone else has a pen. Yes, and Uncle as well. Okay, fine, good, inshallah. That's fine. So if those people can just be catered for, that's fine, inshallah. And then finally, just looking on the side again, do I spend more time in reflecting upon creation? What do we mean by this? Are you reflecting on creation? One of the things that Allah challenges us in the Quran is how often do we look up on creation, a bird or a tree, and draw lessons from it? Draw what? Lessons, absolutely. So now I'm going to ask, I'm going to go through the hearts. I'm going to ask everyone just to work in pairs on this one. So we're going to go, so basically, how is your heart's relationship with Allah? So for example, no, actually, maybe don't do this in pairs, do it, just do it yourself. And so first I want you to ask yourself is, out of 100%, do you feel that you are more humble or more arrogant? And be true to yourself, yeah? Are you more humble, you're arrogant? Or let me go through the ones that I'm going to ask you. Do you have the personality of you're more grateful or ungrateful? Actually, let's do each of these together. So, can I?
These books sounded out now or later?
We could do it later now, inshallah. So, everyone who has a pen, which is the majority of people, or if you don't, you can write this on your phone. Now, I want you to do this. Ask yourself the question: out of 100%, do you find that you are more humble or more arrogant? And assign a percentage. If you feel that you are 100% humble, there's something issue in that statement, by the way. So anyone puts 100% humble in on their piece of paper, then by definition you might not be. But that was a joke. So first and foremost, So ask yourself, do you feel that you're 50% humble or 50% arrogant? Do you find that you're more humble than arrogant? So just literally spend 30 seconds just answering that question. Yeah. How percentage-wise are you humble and arrogant? And there's a reason why I'm asking you to do this as well. It should take less than 30 seconds to do. If you don't have a pen, then you can just do it on your phone. But I do want you to do it. There's a reason. There's a purpose for that. No, you don't have to tell me, but you have to write it down. Yes? So, for example, Uncle, would you find yourself that you are 90% humble and only 10% arrogant, for example? Some people might find that's something it's private to you. I was going to say work in pairs, but then I thought that might not work. I think there will be, yes. So the next one then to ask yourself is, and remember, these are your heart's relationship with Allah. Do you find that you are, as an individual, more grateful or more ungrateful? So you have to think about instances. So how many of you are grateful for being here? Grateful, or even reflect that you're grateful for the health that you've been given? Or are you someone that's ungrateful? When you have instances of issues, lack of something, where does your mind go? Do you reflect and think, oh, but Allah, alhamdulillah, they've blessed me so much? Or do you think, actually, why don't I have that? Yes? By both, and by reflection as well. Because some of these are intimate to you, aren't they? So, for example, you know how grateful you are. How many times, and one of the things is how many times do you acknowledge that you're grateful? You recount your blessings. And the best time or you can test is when you are not given a blessing, something that you wanted or something's taken away from you. Where does your direction go? And again, assign yourself a percentage. Yes, Brother Briss. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So in that sense, is it your first?
No. But that's absolutely the answer. I mean, that's exactly one of the ways to pose this question. When you go through an incident, where does your mind go? Some people go through an incident and they become more ungrateful. They don't reflect on what they've been given. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that sometimes you go like, "Oh, why me?" Yeah.
Yeah.
And suddenly, after say 10 seconds, you're thinking, "Well, hang on a minute, I've got all this." So
yeah, exactly. So put that, but that's in one particular state. But take it as a whole, as your not just that one instance. Yeah, that first you were ungrateful, then you became 100% grateful. Think of it as a whole. Are you more patient or impatient? So come on, now that you know what the theme is, I'm going to let you write down these quicker. How often do you repent? I turn back to Allah. Now, how many of you have ever done this exercise before? So what have we just done in this moment? All you've done is done what? You just reflected. How can I start possessing qualities of humbleness or try to possess or attribute humbleness to myself or adorn that quality if I don't even know where I sit on the scale? How can you say that you're not arrogant if you've never reflected on it? Because these are things that require reflection to determine, actually, am I really arrogant or am I actually quite humble? When you have to ask these questions, and now whatever percentage you're finding yourself on, so when we did the mind and you're here, these can all start forming part of what? Your objectives. Actually, on the humbleness and arrogant scale, let's say someone says, actually, I find that I'm 70% arrogant and 30% humble. Okay, fine. Don't condemn yourself for it. Now we're going to work through the solution as to how to move that percentage in favor of humbleness. That's why we're asking you to do that. But you have to engage. You have to work with us for being able to work on that. So this is your soul's relationship with Allah. and I'm going to go through all of these together, inshallah. You know, in 24 hours, how do you come into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now, some of these things we're going to build on later, because so don't challenge yourself on it too much. But how much are you in the huzuri of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you have that presence of Allah? And this is different. Just you build on it by thinking of Allah first, and then this is a 24-hour state. Do you love the Prophet ﷺ more than your parents, your children? You know, where does the Prophet ﷺ rank in your soul? Yes, brother. That's fine. So the risk, I'm not going to do that, and the reason I'm not going to do it because it will detract from the focus of what I'm doing now. Yeah. But it's not something that won't be answered later. But it's a topic in itself, almost. Yeah. And again, these are then where does the Prophet sit in your ranking? Do you have a yearning to save the ummah from hell, or are you just thinking about yourself? And finally, are you a slave to your feelings, or are your feelings your slave? All of these things are poses. So what do I mean? Are you a slave to your feelings? When you have a desire to do something, do you have to fulfill that desire? Or do you have control over that? So now, perhaps later, that's fine. We'll come to it later, inshallah. But just to focus now, I want to do a practical takeaway. Look, I've gone through the bodily, I've gone through the mind, I've gone through the heart, and we're going through it. So you don't have to factor it. Just the fact that you can grasp some of these, because again, and what I need you to do, this is it. We can't make this academic. I don't expect you to have something on the eye, something on the body, something humbleness. Everything. You just pick the major ones that are important to you, the major ones that you believe that you can work on. Now here today you will do 2 rakah salatul tawbah, and then beg Allah for forgiveness for disobedience to your body, mind, heart, and soul. Yeah. What am I asking you to do? Do what? 2 rakah salatul tawbah. At a moment when you have to yourself, when you have your individual ibadat, in between breaks or whatever it might be, do these 2 rakah and ask Allah for forgiveness. Now, the asking of this forgiveness versus your Ya Allah maaf kar de or Ya Allah forgive me, is there going to be a difference between the two? Yes or no? Yes. Put your hand up if you think yes. Put your hand up if you think no. Mashallah, we have one that says no. Okay, so again, raise your hands if you said yes. Brother in the blue cap, why? Why is there a difference?
Because you're more engaged, you got your mind more concentrated towards the presence of Allah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great summary. Why is it a difference? Because you've actually taken yourself to account. You're actually acknowledging. Hang on a minute. I am a bit. My eyes aren't in the obedience of Allah. I've just realised that my body actually, its relationship with Allah is actually not that great. My hands don't have a good relationship with Allah. My mind is actually really negative. I'm constantly doing things against Allah. My heart is full of rancor and jealousy. See, you've engaged yourself. And now by engaging, I actually understanding that you have these issues. Now when you ask Allah for forgiveness, it's the difference between the heavens and the earth. Because this type of forgiveness is going to be targeted, it's going to be focused, it's going to have an objective. Yes? Whereas just aimlessly saying, Ya Allah, forgive me, Allah has it up absolutely in His mercy to forgive each and every single one of us just based on our statements. Yes or no? But we have to have effort in ourselves, don't we? And that's what this does. It brings you to account. It makes you engaged in what you're doing. It makes you reflective. Okay, now I'm going to go through this one very quickly. These are the different, what type of relationship in the spiritual sense do you have with Allah? And so this is ilmul yaqeen, aql yaqeen, qalbul yaqeen, ainul yaqeen. I want to take a couple of examples just to demonstrate the point that I'm making. So for example, how your spiritual relationship with Allah, how strong is it? I.e., do you believe or you spiritually have this connection with Allah based on just knowledge? That the Quran says that there isn't Allah, there isn't hereafter, there are these angels. Is that the basis in your belief? And even then, how strong is it? Yeah, I believe, that there's angels, and then, but here's a challenge to that belief, and then you will be challenged on this as you go. When and the ilm al-yaqeen is fairly, because most people believe that I say most Muslims, 100% should believe that the Quran is what? The book of Allah, but it's even more than that. It's a sifat of Allah, the only sifat that we have, an attribute of Allah, His pre-eternal word. What a blessed ummah we have, that we have an element. Can you believe that aspect of Allah? That is His pre-eternal word. We believe that to be the truth. So most people have certainty of knowledge, but then we kind of build on that. I'm just going to jump to a good example. Anal yaqeen. This is one of the things, because this is relevant for this retreat. How much of you have certainty and knowledge, i.e. spiritually, through visions or seeing the ilm al-ghaib with this eye? If you had that, would that strengthen your spiritual relationship with Allah? Yes, absolutely. Because if Allah is telling, if Ibrahim alayhi salam is having an engagement with Allah, because we all know the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, yes? When he took the 4 birds, because he wanted to see how Allah resurrects. Is that story familiar or not familiar? Yeah? Because, so Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah, posed the question to Allah, that how will the resurrection happen? Yeah? And Allah goes to Ibrahim alayhi salam, do you not believe? Absolutely, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, but I want to believe more. He wants to increase his belief. So then he was asked to get some birds, asked to nourish them till they got of a good size. Then he was asked, then he zabba them, killed them, and then he mashed up all their meat and the bones all into different ones, and he sent them to different mountains. And Allah asked him to summon them, and they formed themselves and came to him. Why did he ask? Why did he have that engagement? To increase what? His iman, to increase his spiritual relationship with Allah. So that's why this one's quite important. So there's different degrees of this, and so again, my focus isn't what you don't need to come out of this session understanding each and every single one of these. If I went to akal yaqeen, then there's a qalbul yaqeen, i.e. the certainty of your heart. There's anal yaqeen, i.e. certainty, spiritual visions. Then it goes on nafsul yaqeen. And then you have ruhul yaqeen, haqqul yaqeen, certainty of experience. When you begin, that engagement that you have with the spiritual world, it's not just now seeing. You have absolute engagement. It interacts with the spiritual world. You learn from anbiya. You take guidance. Is this just a far-fetched story? Is it achievable? It's absolutely 100% achievable. That's why you're here. That's the whole purpose of that you're here. So that was, so we've gone through your relationship, your bodily relationship with Allah. So remember, we're doing obstacles, aren't we? So I mentioned to you, we've kind of taken a snapshot of how your body can be an obstacle. Then we said that your spiritual relationship, how much of that strength has Allah. And part of what we're doing here is going to increase on that. And then major life problems, how are they impacting your relationship with Allah? Now, I need each and everyone to do that. I want you to write down 2 major life problems that you have, which you believe distracts you from Allah. Yeah? Major problems in your life that are distracting you from Allah. So at this point, I like to see people either writing or on their phones, not messaging, but writing this down. Yes? So 2 problems that distract you from Allah. And it might be different for different people. Someone might be going through a problem in their business that's just got the entire focus. They're not focusing on Allah. Morning and day, it occupies their mind, it occupies their time. Someone might be in financial difficulty. They might be in debt. And it's constant. It's occupying their time. It's causing them, even for some people, it's not just a distraction from Allah. It's a blockage to Allah in the sense that they are taking haram means to alleviate that problem. Now, in your mind, to those of you who can, try to write a solution for each one. If you don't have a solution, that's the point of the one-to-ones, when you will see in Ustaad. But I want each of you to think about it, actually, and think, actually, is there a solution to this? If it's the issue of time, i.e. a major problem is occupying your time, what would you think would be a solution to that? So write down a solution for each one. And then now, so what should you now do? Do Salatul Hajat and ask Allah for His help. Ask Allah for His help to come through this. Now a real optimum time to do this would be when? When would it be the time to do it? At Tahajjud time. And you can couple it with what do we do every single night in the Itikaaf that you've noticed? What do we do every single night? We do a dhikr, we do a durood majlis. At what time do we do that? At the Tahajjud time, when Allah says that He descends to the lowest heaven and asks His people, do you have a need? Now, each of you know now, in the Itikaaf, we were doing that every night. So this is the other benefit of Itikaaf. Is there ever a risk that you will miss worshipping on Laylatul Qadr? No. Because the program, the schedule is made for you such that you will never, that you will be up at the Tahajjud time and you will be engaged in the worship of Allah. So that's all being set for you. Now, all I'm asking you to do is, before then, perhaps just find a couple of minutes to do 2 rakats Salatul Hajat. So when you're in that durood majlis, you can have absolute focus on asking Allah for His help. Allah's asking you to ask Him. So unlawful wealth. Now, how are you earning your wealth? You need to ask yourself, because this is one of the major obstacles from benefit from your spiritual openings. Are you spending wealth in haram ways? Now, are you earning wealth in haram way? What's an obvious example, that someone might be earning wealth in haram way? Interest, bank accounts, but there's even more. How many of you people do a job cash in hand, not declared? All these type of things. You have to ask yourself: are you going through them? I'm not asking you to make excuses. There's always two type of people. They say there's one that the type of people might be drinking alcohol. They might be drinking what? Alcohol. One drinks alcohol and says that he knows in his heart he shouldn't, but he drinks anyway. And there's one that drinks alcohol and says, yeah, but times have changed. It's not a problem. Is there a difference between the two people? They both consume the same amount of alcohol, a pint of lager each. Not that I know about this stuff, but they both consume a pint of lager each. But one consumes it, but he knows actually I shouldn't be doing this. And there's one that consumes it, and when he's asked, he's like, no, times have changed. We have to roll with it. I don't get intoxicated. I just drink. And the Islam says you have to get drunk. I don't actually get drunk. I know how to control my alcohol. Is there a difference between the two? The difference between the world and heaven, to quote Uncle Iqbal, absolutely, there is. One acknowledges that what he's doing is wrong, in spite of the fact that he's doing it. But one, if he doesn't even think there's anything wrong, how can that person ever seek to repent? This is really important, because no one goes to hell because of the sins that they commit. No one goes to hell because of the sins they commit. It's the failure to repent. Now, if I say that, some people think, oh, that's really easy then. Hang on a minute. Because Allah says that if you were not a people that committed sin, He would do away with us and bring about a people that do sin, but then turn to Allah in repentance. But to be able to repent, You have to understand, you have to acknowledge the fact that you're doing something wrong. That's why it's a difference between the heavens and the earth. If there's no acknowledgement, if you don't know that actually what I'm doing is perfectly halal or it's not wrong, then you're not going to repent. Are you spending your wealth in haram ways? Are you buying alcohol, for example? Now write down a solution for each one. Again, if you don't have a solution, I want you to write that down as well, by the way. If you have a solution, write down a solution. If you don't have a solution, then write this. Ask an Ustaad for a solution. Yes? So there's going to be an action point either way. And again, do Salatul Hajat and beg Allah to resolve these problems and for help. Now I'm going to answer a question that's probably in people's minds and before they ask me. You don't have to do a separate Salatul Hajat for every single one of these. Just one is going to be sufficient. Yeah, and then ask in your dua for all the different things we go through. Now moving on to the fifth obstacle, marital problems. Can marital problems block you from Allah? Everyone says yes to that. I assume if I asked for a show of hands who's married, it'd be all the people that said yes. So again, now this is a huge issue that causes people distraction from Allah. You know, now again, think about actually, are you going through marriage problems? You know, is your marriage problem so much so that you think it supports your relationship with Allah? I never go home. I don't want to. I like to stay in the mosque 24/7. You know, or that's how Denmark brothers enlightening us on their marriages. Alhamdulillah, we'll leave that to them. Are you so consumed in the issues that are going through in your marriage? So think about that and write a solution. You know, if you find that sometimes it's just a mindset change. Now we have a marriage workshop, so I come across a lot of marital issues, and a lot of time it is a mindset. It's just understanding, and sometimes the biggest issue is there's no Allah in the equation. There's a man, there's a woman, there's a husband and a wife, but there's no Allah. If there's no Allah in the equation, you think there's definitely going to be you're definitely going to have issues. So write down a solution. If you don't have one, what's the answer? Ask an Ustaad. Yeah. And then again, the same point, do Salat Hajat, or when you do the one, then when you do the Durood Majlis, you can make that supplication. Ji, Uncle Ibrahim.
Actually, when you run the course, you begin to recognize what you are doing wrong.
Absolutely.
So it makes you more conscious of your relationship, what you're doing to the other person, rather. And wife, for example, says, I am like this, and I never used to take it seriously.
Yes.
Now, I'm asking, I'm sorry about this. She said, you say sorry, but you don't change. So that is a test. Then you say, yes, right, because that's she's experiencing that. So you come back to yourself and say, I need to do something more. And you bite your tongue and say, yes, I will improve.
Oh, mashallah.
So that's its reality is that the course actually teaches you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and the course will speak for itself. You know, it will speak. That's why I'm not here to sell you anything. No one is here to do that. Uncle Iqbal might be, but I'm not. I'm here to relay something to you and give you practical solutions, and everything will begin to fall in place and come together. But one point that is made absolutely. Firstly, good job we didn't put him on the microphone, because if we did, and any sisters that are listening, you know, the bit where he said, "Yes, you are right," we'll solve a number of marriage problems. Yes. But he makes a point. It is about self-awareness first. You have to understand that there's issues going on about yourself. Actually, how are you as a human being? If you're looking at your relationship, your tongue's relationship with Allah, and you find that actually, I swear, pretty much in most sentences that I have, do you not think that's going to have an impact on some of your relationships? You know, more of this becomes in your mind. You become more cognizant, eye conscious. Okay, and next one. Okay, 6. Are you going through any major issues in your relationships with your parents, your siblings, your friends, your colleagues? Yeah. And think about that. Really think, if you have your parents, you're blessed to have your parents to be alive, how is your relationship with them? Because it can be a major obstacle in the way to Allah. Again, do you have a lovely relationship with them? Are you respectful? How often do you see them? How often, if you don't see them, how often do you phone them? How often do you give your siblings gifts? How often do you see, for the brothers that here, how often do you go and see your sisters, your siblings? How engaged are they in your life? And then apply the same with your friends and colleagues. If you find that you hang around with a group of friends, but when you're away from that friend and you're backbiting about them, is there an issue in the relationship? Yes or no? Yes, there is, isn't there? If your friend tells you about something they've achieved and you have an issue with that, you have to think about these things. Same with your colleagues. If you're working business with someone, what's your relationship like with them? And then again, write down the solution for this, and then the Salatul Hajat, as we mentioned. Now we're moving on to the final obstacle, and one that comes up often, it's headed submission to the teacher. Now, what do we mean by this? Ustaad Sajid touched on this when he was going through the introduction to the spiritual marriage, because he mentioned that we have a teacher that is set out the framework and the route map for this. Now, and this teacher, so let's just go through what it says in the slides. The focus should be on focus on the teacher fully, following the teacher's guidance, instructions on the spiritual path wholeheartedly, respecting all others but following one teacher only, to love and eager to be in the company. Now, let's just work on a very logical basis. Now, I know Uncle Ramzan and others had mentioned some questions around this as well. And I think Ustaad Sajid mentioned that when you're doing your SAT exams, who knows what SATs are? Sorry, I should ask that question first. Well, before your time, some of you. Okay, who knows what GCSEs are? Yes. So you go to primary school and you have a teacher, and it seems like a logical thing, and that teacher gets you through to primary school. But when you have your GCSEs, you have a teacher that gets you through your GCSEs. Now, at the time of your GCSEs, your focus should be on who? Your primary school teacher, your SATs teacher, or your GCSE teacher? Who says GCSE teacher? Who doesn't say GCSE teacher? Okay, so your focus should be on which teacher? The GCSE teacher. But the teacher that put the effort in to get you through your SATs, to get you through your primary school, do you not have respect for that teacher? Yes or no? By you focusing and having respect on your GCSE teacher, does that take away the respect you have from your SATs teacher? No. Why not? Now, but here's the question: when you're on your but to get through to your GCSEs, to reach your objective, to get your GCSEs, your focus has to be on who? GCSE. Now, let's say that I learnt about something in my SAT exams, but now my GCSE teacher says something that might be contrary to what I think I understood in my SATs. Who do I follow? GCSEs, because that's the teacher, that's the expert in that. They're the ones that are going to get you through your GCSEs. So, but if I've done my SATs, and by the grace of Allah, I got level 7, if that means anything to anyone, when I did my SATs, now I've come into my GCSEs. So SATs you do in your year 9, they're like they're your streaming exams, they get you in your sets. And I turn up and my GCSE teacher starts talking in science, and then I'm like, what are you talking about? I did well in my SATs. I know what I'm talking about. I don't agree with what you're saying, or I kind of ponder afterwards, thinking, he or she doesn't know what they're talking about. That's not what I learned. That's not what I know. That's not how I learnt it. Is the issue with them or with me? Is this gonna become a blockage for me learning or my GCSEs? Yes or no? It is, isn't it? Logically, utterly speaking, it is going to, each and every one of you agree to that it will become a blockage because I'm bringing with me all this baggage from my previous, rather than submitting to the teacher that I have now, i.e. the GCSE teacher. Yeah? There's no difference in this field. Each and every one of you have come to this Itikaaf. This Itikaaf is being designed, programmed, mapped by Sheikh Ahmed Dabag. By who? Sheikh Ahmed Dabag. This is the entire format that they've set up. So when I'm talking to you about, when one of the stars is talking about the 5 amals, when someone is talking about the spiritual journey, and when I'm talking to you about the obstacles, this is all part of a grand design. Just like in the GCSEs, you have a syllabus, don't you? You have a syllabus that you go, you have components in maths, you have components in science, but they all come together. Let's just stick with one subject, for example. Let's just say physics. In physics, do you learn the same thing in each and every single class? No, you learn, one class might be focused on an element of physics, on gravity or Newton's theory, something else might be on something else. But all of it, the teacher, the physics teacher knows what they are doing. Yes or no? They know that all these different modules they're teaching you will all come together. They all form something. Now, it might not be clear to me at that point. When I'm sitting in learning about Newton's theory, I might be thinking, well, what's this got to do with my GCSEs? I know the GCSE exam asked me something else. Why are they teaching me this? But I don't know, they know, don't they? And you have trust in the fact, but I can only, if I submit to them wholeheartedly, that's the only way I'm going to achieve that A or A star. Yes or no? Now, is anyone here not here to achieve an A star? Everyone wants an A star, don't you? Is it in your reach? Yes. If you say no, then that's a blockage which I need to talk about. Yeah. You have to believe it's in your reach. And you have to understand that in terms of the concept of a teacher, that you have to submit to what they're saying. So each of us will have a degree of what knowledge? Knowledge in Islam, yes? Or actually, let me rephrase that. Each of us thinks that we have some aspects of knowledge in Islam. Yeah? Is Islam a science? Or does Islam have sciences to it? They have an element of fiqh, yes? They have aqidah, they have tazkiyah, purification. Every element of Islam has a science to it as well. Now, each of us will come with knowledge, all of us at a different degree. Some of us will think, well, how does this benefit? But the fact that you're here to get full and maximum benefit, you have to be able to submit to a teacher. Yeah, and in here, the concept is, that's why when, I think one of the brothers, it may have been Uncle Ramazan when he was speaking yesterday, people are, why the focus on a teacher? The question, that's not the right question. When I have young children, for them, when they're like right up to 5, I always say to them, there's no wrong question. Yeah? But you and me know there are wrong questions. That's what you say to a young child. There are no wrong questions because you want them to ask and encourage. But there will come a point in their life, but it's not just about the question. It's about actually, you've had your 5, 6, 7 years of me nurturing them and so forth, that you have trust in me. There's going to become a point where it's just going to be about my amr, my command, I expect them to follow. Period. I'm not here to justify every single opportunity. Fine, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe up to years, when they're 7 years old, I've entertained their questions. But there's going to be a point when I'm just going to say, no, now it's just a case of we built that relationship, we just need to focus now. Yes? That's the key thing here. So in terms of the question really should have been not why not? Who is the teacher should be the question. Who is the person that's masterminded all of this and put all of this together? That's the question. And then the question is, how do I follow? Give me, tell me. That's the shift. Now, I'll give you an example yesterday. Dr. Musharraf, he's designed what? The book, The Majestic Quran. And he gave some really insights into what he's done. He said that he had, I'm not sure if he's here, he had 6 definitions of what? Taqwa, didn't he? He said he had 6 definitions of taqwa. Now, and then he went through Surah Ikhlas, I'm no father, no son. Yeah. Now, for many of us, that may be, we've never seen that translation before. It's normally, I am not begotten, nor do I beget. Now, some people will argue there's a different that's a different translation to what he said. He's got 6 definitions of taqwa, and it's mentioned 71 times, he said, or something to that effect. 6 definitions. And then he did that exercise with us. Now, I was on the receiving end of this exercise. When he said, which surah did we go through? Nail, yeah? And then he went through it, and then he said there was a moral, spiritual thing. And then I said, well, actually, isn't this one of the answers? And he gave me a flat out no. Yes? Why? Because in that field, that's the book that he's designed. I need to submit to his understanding to be able to access that book. So if I want to benefit, any of you want to benefit from the majestic Quran, any of you, you have to understand whose methodology. Dr. Musharraf, you have to understand his method. Why would he spend time going through themes? Do I need to, why is it? Because he's telling us this is the themes I've used in my translation. This is how this is what taqwa means for me. So for me to access, i.e. to benefit from that book, I need to submit to his understanding, not my preconceived understanding. And that's exactly when the question I posed to him when we were going through the exercise, and he was saying there was the first one was about charity, I believe, and then the second one was mindfulness. And I said, oh, I think it means. Oh no, first one was generosity. Second one aspect was mindfulness. I said, well, I think it's reliance. And not did he just say no, he shook his head. No. You know, period. Because, and now I came with baggage. I came with my assumed knowledge. And he put me right. He said, no, to access his book, and he's absolutely correct. Fine, I might have seen a translation of Muhammad Picktle, rahimullah, or someone else. But his translation, to access his book, I need to understand his methodology. So my dear brothers, viewers, every single person, because I'm going to conclude shortly, to understand, to benefit from this path, you have to understand that there is a teacher, Shaykh Ahmad Baq, who has designed everything. And therefore, whether we are building this up as a component, some of the aspects we will understand, some we won't understand. But it all leads to something. But I have to wholeheartedly submit to their view, i.e. the way they're teaching this in order to benefit. Yes or no? Yes. Brothers at the back, yes or no? Yes. The brother that's leaning against the wall, yes or no? Was that a yes? My very serious brother. Okay, so so that's the final piece that of the puzzle, inshallah. So I've got a few minutes now before we break to take any questions that anyone has. Relevant questions, and not ones that I expect from my 5-year-old. And especially, I really want to hear from the new brothers. And can I just reflect on my experience that there is not a class that I have turned up to pretty much most of my life, whereas if I don't understand something, that I don't ask the question. Does that make sense? You know, you should ask. Now, if I I'm not sitting here to say I know all the answers, but at least if you ask, if I don't know, I'll go find out. I mean, that's the least I can do. Yes, brother, I'm just.
Wait for the mic.
Assalamu alaikum. So I was just thinking that in all of these problems that I've listed here, the common thing comes around is disengagement.
Yes.
Disengagement isn't a solution.
No. The solution would be what? Engagement, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So it was an observation, yes?
Yeah.
So brother just made an observation that part of what he's seen in terms of when we were going through these major obstacles, that he goes, actually the problem he thinks he's identified is that it's actually a disengagement from Allah, I'm assuming. So he goes, but that's not a solution. Now, Brother Amjad is a professor, I understand, a doctor.
Scientist.
He's a scientist, mashallah. And they say sometimes state the obvious. He goes that disengagement isn't a solution. I said, yes, you're right. It's not a solution. The solution will be engagement. But we can go further than that. Okay, that's fine. I can sit here and give a lovely lecture and say, yes, brother Amjad, the solution is to engage Allah, to have love for Allah, to really feel Him in your heart. Now, I can say that and I can stir emotions, very easily, and I can make all of you feel really, but that's not good enough. It's not good enough. I'm not doing justice to myself, nor am I doing. You need to ask me, how do I engage Allah? And that's what this course will teach you. Yeah. How does your eyes engage Allah? How will your mind engage Allah? How will your heart engage Allah? Each of these things we will address. And if you feel they're not being addressed, then you do what? You ask. Yeah? You have a one-to-one. All of these can be put to you. Now, some of these answers, the way the course works again is that they'll start coming together. But what I need you to do, so this is the purpose of why we mention these obstacles now, is because they need to be in your mind. And as you go through this course, things will start dropping. And you're like, oh, I understand. There's my solution for that. And you'll have these moments where the fruit will start dropping, and you'll be like, that makes sense, because your mindset's going to begin to change. Sometimes you'll come across something, and your intellect or nafs or whatever you want to call it will say, that's not how I've heard it before. And then you'll stop and you'll say, oh, but this is a different teacher. This is the way they're teaching it. And it's supposed to lessen your guard, not put up your guard. Yeah? Any other questions? Especially from new brothers.
Raise your hands, time is short. One last question.
Okay, so if you don't have any questions, just one final thing. Was everyone given one of these? Yes? And did anyone notice that? So there's some dhikr here, and there's some the Muraqabah. Brother Professor Ashfaq went through this yesterday. He did, yes? Yeah. So was this supposed to be something that you pick up and then just put to the side? Okay. So, and the day, when did he give it yesterday? He gave it yesterday night. So 24 hours would be this evening. So tomorrow or later this evening, if I ask every one of you to pick this up, and just show it like that, am I going to be expecting to have seen something on this sheet? What would I expect to see? Tick, hopefully. But equally, a cross might be there. But I want to see something. I don't want to see, sometimes we have these booklets as well. And sometimes you bring to your course. And sometimes people's books are like really polished and nice. I realised what the problem is straight away. I was like, you're never engaged. You have to engage with this. And for brothers here, who here is not a new brother? And of you, keep your hands up. Of you that are, now, how many of you are still ticking your sheets? Good. Oh, someone's doing this. I don't know what that means. Yes or no, yes or no. MashaAllah. And how many of you, this is an opportunity to kind of rectify and remedy. Now, for all the brothers that are new, look around you. Many of the brothers are still doing this because it's part of an engagement. I have an app on my phone that I use, especially in moments like Ramadan, because you supercharge yourself, and you feel good. Oh, I didn't look at anyone today, but that's because you're in a mosque. There's no one to look at, or whatever the situation might be. But this is a moment to really supercharge yourself. Get your nice little ticks because your tongue. There's not much. You're in an environment that's going to allow you, is giving you all the access to really, really go through this, to go through the tongue, to go through the sincerity, the prayer. when you learn the spiritual prayer, this ticks will, there'll be stars sitting on these things, and then some of this. The brother mentioned, the Muraqabah piece that works with the Durul Majlis as well. So. Find opportunities where these fit in, and then you have the zikr, and you don't have to spend that much time, but do something. Don't let when I always say to someone, even if you're going to honestly say you can't find 10 minutes, now say find 5 minutes, but do something. Keep it consistent, because the thing that's most beloved to the Prophet ﷺ is small but consistent. That's such a beautiful thing, because how does it benefit that on the 27th night this mosque will be packed? As will mosque be up and down the country. People will spend nights in a worship. Good thing to do. Absolutely. But what happens the next day? If you missed Fajr and Dhuhr, then you've got an issue, haven't you? That's why here, it's not, we can all do the Nawafils, we can all do the Quran. That's not why you're here. You're here to learn the tools, to engage with Allah, so that when you leave this mosque, that you have a fighting chance against Shaitan, a fighting chance against that entity that is telling us that he is our enemy, that he will come from the front. And now, when you know who your enemy is, how many of us, if your neighbor told you, I'm going to get you, do you know, or someone says, I'm going for you, I'm going to gun for you, how many of you will take defensive measures? Put your hand up. How many of you will take offensive measures? A few of you. See? The ones that are going to be super good are going to take offensive measures. You've been given the threat, you're told someone's coming for you, you can take defensive measures, but the real sensible ones will be, actually, let me take the battle to them. I'm not even going to let them step into my garden. And that's what we're doing here. We're equipping you so that you can be on the offensive when you leave, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. It's been a pleasure to sit with you again. Like I said, ultimately, if you have any questions, please see one of the Ustads.
Jazakallah, Ustad Majid. We're going to break up now for Zuhur Salah. So if you want to get back to for 1:45, and immediately after Zuhur, we're going to have our Quran workshop starting. So please don't disappear. Jazakallah.